Hi everyone, I hope you're fine and I'm very fine also. I want to welcome you today for our lesson on project management. I remember some of you had asked me a question on how do you evaluate a project. Basically, today I will want to dissect onto that and be able to help you if you are planning to have a project or you're currently implementing a project or you're actually facing out a project. So what are some of the things that I will advise that you look at? But before we go there, I will ask you to subscribe if you are new to this channel. Kindly subscribe because in my channel I will be focusing on various aspects of array of issues, right from politics, development, nutrition, and anything that my viewers and my friends are asking me to talk about. So today I wish and hope that I'm going to be able to address some of the challenges that you had presented, and even if you are also interacting with this video for the first time and you have challenges around project management, I'll be looking at the different phases of project management in the future videos. But today specifically, because this was an area of concern to one of our followers, I will want to stick to his area of concern. Uh, and I will be looking at generally what is the checklist that you need to have in doing your project evaluation. So feel free, feel welcome. I hope you have subscribed. As you're aware, basically a project is developed to be able to address some of the community needs, some of the gaps in your environment. And a project has a different phases. A project really has it's almost, I will put them into 4 phases. That's the standard phase of project management. We always have the planning phase, because at the planning phase you need to ask yourself why the project. Basically, why are you thinking of the project? Why are you thinking of doing some intervention? So once you are able to clearly picture out what you want to do, you might also be able to look, have an outlook on like what will you need to be able to offer the intervention. What are the resources that will be put in place? Who are the stakeholders that will be involved in this project? And stakeholders basically are people who will be influenced directly by the project, or people who will feel the impact of your project. Just like in my house here, my immediate my key stakeholder at this moment is my neighbors. Those who actually will be influenced by whatever I am doing, and who will also be can also become participants in helping me realize my intention. So having looked at that, then we will also be able to move into the implementation phase. We'll also be able to look at the evaluation phase of the project, and then the exit strategy, and that forms the sustainability part of it. Does the project realize its goals? Are there new gaps or room for new interventions? Or did the project in totality left a foundation that was desired at the at the inception, when the project was being incepted, when the project was being designed and being rolled out, was it able to actually achieve that desired goal? So you will also realize that in also part of your implementation, a project may have full funding and full implementation and full rollout of activities as it was planned. But in other cases, you might also realize that some projects will be funded in phases against the overall budget. So some partners will want to give you authority to move to the next phase. So you will actually be doing implementation in phases. Once you're done with one phase, you request to be able to do the other phase. And this also helps in checks and balances, whether you're on course and the partners are also on course with you as you do the implementation. So generally, the checklist or the evaluation questions that you need to ask yourself when you now want to actually evaluate your project. Because I said specifically for today, my focus will be on the project evaluation. So that some of the questions will be used to help you solicit the required information. So, and this targets all data sources. This targets all data sources. Look at the project component, the result areas, and the respondent categories. So they will be translated into specific data collection tools targeting different respondent categories and data sources. So one of the key areas, and which that becomes our first area of focus, is the project relevance. You must be able to ask yourself, was the project objective in line with the needs and priorities of the stakeholders, especially your target group? Because, and these are the project beneficiaries, or your direct beneficiaries. Were the project objectives in line with their needs and priorities? Was this project for them, by them, or with them? And then you must move to the next level of evidence that the strategies implemented address the needs of your target group. Those are those are the critical relevance questions you need to ask yourself. At that level, again, you still need to ask yourself if another project strategy would have been preferred rather than the one you used to better reflect those needs and priorities and basically the context of your beneficiaries. And then, were your risks appropriately identified by the project? Because at times, let me give you a good example. You were in a garden digging, and then you reach a point where when you're digging, you feel there's some layer of hardness beneath, where when you're digging, you feel that you're hitting something hard. What will you do in that case? Will you ignore it, or will you be interested to unearth and see what is this that you're hitting very hard that is actually derailing you? So in that case, you realize it's a concrete block, or it's a huge stone. You call your team members and you work in removing the stone or removing the block, and then you continue with the digging. So that is, it means you, in the project implementation, you came through a risk. How did you manage the risk? You had to put your eyes together, look at what would be the direct influence of the prevailing risk in the project implementation. Is it ignorable, or it has some meaningful impact? And then what is the counter mechanism? Do we ignore it? Do we remove it? Or do we work out something better around it? Depending on the area of coverage. Is it going to interfere with our farming? Or we can still farm on it, but now be aware that this will be an area of focus to see if it whatever comes out of it. So we must also be able to look at how appropriate were the strategies developed to deal with identified risk. Once you do that, then you shall have addressed the question of the project relevance. Number two, we move to now identify the project efficiency. That is another critical area that you will be asking yourself when evaluating your project. Is there evidence or sufficient relationship between your input and your output? The resources that we gave in, the activities and the activities that we did. What was the close relationship between the two? How did this contribute to this? Were the resources enough? Were the resources insufficient? Were the outcomes bigger than the input? Did we use little but got much, or did we use much and got less? So to what extent was the project implemented as envisaged by the project document? You see what you're asking yourself? If yes, it was as envisaged in the project document. If no, why could it not work the way it was envisaged? And then, with that kind of interaction, it makes you be able to visualize whether you're on the right course to the point when you're now doing your evaluation. You must be able to ask yourself, were the project activities adequate to make progress towards the project objectives? Because there are some projects that need high impact engagement with the stakeholders. Because in a case like where you're doing, let's say you're doing public participation, but you want to increase the participation of the targeted group, maybe let's say in management of devolved fund. But the funding that you're having, one could have been on mobilization and not trainings, so that people understand what are these funds, what is their room for participation in the management of the funds, what roles are the stakeholders supposed to do in the fund management. So you realize you do mobilization, but you're not able to again be able to understand if these people really understand what is their role in the project. So you must be able to question yourself and analyze, were the activities that you had planned in line with the project objective? And what has the project achieved? What has the project achieved within that context? And you must further be able to ask yourself, where did the project fail? Where did your project fail to meet the output identified in the project document, and why was this? Because at times you also realize the timelines for engagement, it was not as a division, because some funding come maybe at a time when the key processes that you are targeted to influence had already taken place. So you realize that you might miss the key processes, like when you're talking about participating in budget making process, especially in terms of let's say you're doing a good governance project, and then your goal was to increase the public participation in the devolved processes, and specifically on public finance management or devolved fund management. And you realize this is a process that has circles, that is start from needs identification to needs prioritization, and then it goes maybe to the legislative level, Then again, it comes for validation. So you realize you might be planning your project at the time of validation, and then you had missed at the critical point, which was to identify needs that would have been relevant to your target group. So you come to realize that in terms of effectiveness, which is actually the third point that I'm looking at, in terms of effectiveness, the evidence of strong beneficiary satisfaction with the service will have to be looked at. And you must be able to ask yourself, is there evidence of strong beneficiary satisfaction? Are your beneficiaries satisfied with your implementation? If they're satisfied, what are the indicators? If they're satisfied, what were the benefits of their participation in the project? If they're not satisfied, what is their feedback? And therefore that brings us to number 4. The fourth question you will want to address will be the project impact. That to what extent has the project impacted positively on the specific problem it aimed to address? Yes? Are we together? You will also want to ask yourself whether the targeted beneficiaries experience tangible impact, and the impact must be either positive or negative. You don't always expect everything to be positive. At times, the impact could be negative, because you might have anticipated that you were increasing public participation on good governance, but in the long run, it turned out to be their participation was more to create created antagonism between the duty bearers and the beneficiaries. So you must be very ready for any outcome. You must also be able to ask yourself at this level that to what extent has the project caused changes and effect on democratization, especially when you're dealing with governance. Or how has this created changes in service delivery? Or how has it created changes in the business environment, depending on what was your focus in the implementation. And another critical area of impact that I would want us not to miss is the project likely to have catalytic effect. How and why? What will be the spillover effect of your project? Maybe to the neighboring community, maybe to people who are not participating directly in the project, who are not engaged directly, but will be feeling the influence in the changes that were realized by your project beneficiaries. Then we move to the level now, which is our number 5, in responding to the question of project sustainability. What is the program exit strategy? What was your projected exit strategy before or during the implementation of the project? Because as you plan to execute, you also plan to exit. So the program exit strategy overall and for each of the component areas, you must be able to look at each objective. Is this objective as sustainability component in terms of knowledge transfer, in terms of knowledge dissemination? What is the project leaving behind? What are the systems? What are the structures that shall continue doing that beyond the project? And then what efforts are the program or the project or the program put or is putting to ensure that its benefits and services remain sustainable? Yeah. Did they? I will still get back to the issue of public participation, citizen participation in devolved fund management or in public uh, um, governance. Were you able to actually influence the structures in a way that it is either enshrined in law? Like right now, Kenya, we are grappling, we have no clear framework on what public participation means. To what degree will we say that the public are effectively participating? So, in such a scenario, was there a policy that was put in place, or was there a law that was enacted that has actually defined what is public participation? And then, what kind of support or commitment has the project secured from the government on other non-state actors and even private entities? And here we're talking about maybe the business communities. Were they able to continue influencing the business environment? Or are they continuing to engage the duty bearers for continue providing favorable activities that support what the project was able to initiate? So you must, in sustainability again, you must be able to ask yourself to what extent has the project intervention been picked by other non-state actors? Because you realize some stakeholders will actually be able to pick some of the great components and be able to integrate into their way nature of working in their institutions or in their organizations, or even the local governments are able to now value some of the influences that was brought about by your project. You must also know ask yourself whether the capacity of the implementing partners has been improved. Has the capacity of stakeholders been improved? What are they now doing differently that was not there before? What are the best practices that have emerged from your project implementation? Like if you're creating awareness on waste management, and you now say that everybody is now conscious and know where to place their waste, they know how to distribute the waste, they also know how to sort out the waste, and knows that this is for fresh waste, the vegetable waste, and this is for recycle waste that can be recycled. So they're able to even sort out the waste when they're moving waste from their houses. And then they have a centralized point of putting the waste and ensuring that that becomes their collection point. And the duty bearers are also able to come and pick the waste in time and go and dispose of it in the manner defined. Our last or second last point, we'll also want to look at what were the linkages that were created by your project. Because some of these results, you're realizing that it needed stakeholder engagement, like the dialogues and the linkages. How have the implementing partners or the stakeholders mutually involved? And all of them, at what level were they embracing the results or embracing the project? Is there any evidence of strong collaboration between the project and the partners and even the relevant institutions and other states and other actors? Because just as I said, the community or the society has different actors who are also contributing their part. Do you have any evidence of accountability to stakeholders? Was there, and here you're just saying that in terms of how does your stakeholders view you, or view the project implementation team, or view your project? Was there any good communication between you and the stakeholders? What was the feedback mechanism, the feedback system that you had created in place, that you will be able to get what the stakeholders and what other partners were saying? And again, is there any ongoing, something evidence-based, of learning and reflection between you and the stakeholders, or between you and the other partners? Good. Another point that you will also need to be asking yourself at the time of evaluation, and this comes again into the issue of the stakeholders, and that's about the special interest group, how your project was the project able to address the needs of the special interest group. And here we talk about either gender or the marginalized. How has the project catered for the different needs and the challenges of your stakeholders, either males, females, the different social groups? Even if they say they are dealing with as a school project, were you able to look at the gender interest? You must be able to look at what are the changes that have occurred in the participation of this target group in decision making or in the project operation. Does all participants feel that they were equally and rightfully involved in the implementation of the project? And how has that program or project contributed to these changes? So you must be able to explore that, like if there are areas that a project need to be more proactive on, or make major focus on. Because now you're trying to address things that relate well with your beneficiaries, so that you ensure great participation and benefit of the project intervention to your target. And then finally, at the exit, our last point is on the project exit. And now we call the project closure, or project future plans, or project improvement. And here you must be able to ask yourself, what were the main strengths and weaknesses of the project? In terms of the policies, in terms of the systems, in terms of your management, how the project was managed from the beginning to the end, and in terms of the partnerships that the project was able to develop or that the project targeted. You must ask yourself at this level, what efforts has the project made to build on the strength to improve performance in each of the components? And this actually means the project cycle, from the planning stage to the execution and the M&D processes that form part of the project cycle. And at this level again, because we have said you could have gone through risk as you're realizing your milestones, there are other risks that the project could have interacted with. So you must be able to outline at this level, how are you addressing the identified weaknesses? Or what proposals, or what are you proposing as way forward, as measures that are supposed, that if implemented, will address the weaknesses that were realized? And at times when you're doing the midterm evaluation, so you'll realize that you at that level you shall have identified the project risks, and then you'll be able to prescribe what what are you going to do to address those needs in the phase, the next phase of implementation. And some of this at this level, at the midterm evaluation, at times it might even call for you to be able to discuss with your partners or the financiers of the project to see if some of the project areas could be reorganized to address what are the realities on the ground. Because you must be able to bring on board the new things or the new issues that have emerged, or the new working ways that you've identified that could work better for the project, or or that you can propose that should be adopted for future improvement of similar programming. I think if you were able to answer like almost, I think I've talked about 7 or 8 key areas. If you can easily be able to address those questions, then holistically you should have actually looked at the entire project, and that will give you a strong foundation and a firm grip on any project you want to implement or you have implemented. Because a good project report will be able to inform other project implementation of similar nature. At times, even lessons, even strategies that you are utilizing in the current project or any project that you have implemented or was implemented by another organization can also be borrowed as a best practice moving forward in other programming. So I think I was able to touch extensively, and I think I might have addressed the key concern of my participant. And if you can also add in the question in the comment section if there are areas that also are also critical that you might have identified when I was speaking that also need to be inputted. So we can interact in the comment section, and if there are also new areas you want me to focus on, that can also form part of my next video presentation. So I'll say thank you for your time. I look forward to our next video, and our next video I might even want to help us understand in context what is project management, and even further even go into how to develop a project evaluation report. I know some people might be interested in now, having looked at all this because this is our checklist. Having looked at the checklist, now how can I even come up with a report? What methodology will I use? So that will form my next presentation. So thank you for your time. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, because I'll be coming up with a lot of such good contents that can also help you if you're a programmer. Thank you.